Alright, so let's get going. What I want to show is how to transfer point cloud data from Touchdesigner to Blender. It's this small workflow that I worked out. So if you have any kind of animated point cloud, so what I have right here is just this simple visualizer that is reacting to music. So you should hear a bit of it. Well, whatever you cook, I want to show how to transfer these points to Touchdesigner. So still, what am I doing here? I have this DJ set hooked up so I don't get tired of what I'm listening to. I guess I can drop a link to that in the description. So I'm just doing a simple EQ basically that I'm then turning into this point cloud. So we can actually see the main top that is driving the point cloud right here. And if we split it with RGBA, this is what we see. So maybe you can start getting an idea for how we create this effect by just instancing objects onto these points. So this could be a bit of a spoiler for what I'm making out of this point cloud. But so this is just a demo of the object that I am instancing in Blender to just get an idea of how I have to set up my my point cloud, the dimensions of the cube that I'm generating, and then deleting points from using this this alpha value that is generated by the audio signal. But all of that is besides the whole point here. The main part of this workflow is recording this top that we use to drive our point cloud as an image sequence of EXR images. So what we can do is, if we adjust this file name, if we check what the default is for an image sequence out, this is the wrong one. If we get a movie file out, we can see here what have I changed. So I changed this to image sequence, the file type to OpenEXR. I changed these leading zero digits to 4. This will help later on, so the files don't start at 1 but start at 0, 0, 0, 1. Of course, you'll need to add more if you have a longer animation. Okay, pause this for a second so we don't have that music running. So as well, one thing you can look out for is this limit length. So I just changed that here. And the other thing is we do want to set this to nearest pixel and the pixel format to RGBA, so we transfer everything. Other than that, this will adjust to the dimensions. And as well, if we look at the info on this, we will see that this whole point cloud is just 13 by 160. So this is well in the bounds of what you can do without a license in Touchdesigner, making this a free workflow. So if we another thing is here I changed this so the file name is not just tdmovieout but is also EXRs /. So this will automatically create a folder. I guess I can quickly change this to EXRs tutorial. And if I now set this to record, just let it run a bit. We can already check in this folder that was just created, EXR's tutorial was created automatically. Maybe we can hop in this, sort by the name, and check if it's created everything. Okay, 359. I guess that's so I guess it starts at 0. Good. We can turn this off and pause here. So now we have all of these EXR frames that we can already show in preview. And if we zoom in, well, I guess this is our data. So how do we get this data into Blender? Well, another point is it's important to have these EXR frames. I tried different formats for this, video files, and only these EXR frames, when loading into Blender, actually can, well, capture this data. So here we see, after importing, I'll show how to import, but here we see 13 by 160 RGBA float, and well, that's enough for now. So this is what we can now create from these EXR frames without doing any other positioning. It will we can instance onto the points from these EXR frames with a quite simple setup. I can show how to set this up now. Well, so let's hide the finished setup. If we quickly hop into material preview, so this is also, I quickly use this cube to get the dimensions of this single object so that I know how to set up my point cloud in Touchdesigner. So let's add a fresh cube and let's get our point cloud going. So what we'll do is we can get a grid, and the fancy thing about this grid is that if we load in an image, if we open up an image, so right now this, I guess this opened up to the other folder I had, but now we're in EXR's tutorial. I don't know if you have to do this, but let's just select all of the files in here with A. So what do we have now? So here we can see it loaded up the images from here, and this is the first file. It detected that we have, well, 360 frames. Don't know if I detected that on its own or if it's just because we have 360 frames, but still, if we look at this, we can see that it's reacting. So this is the point cloud that we just generated. So we can see that something is happening right here. I hope we can see that. So we can change this to non-color, so it's definitely data that we're displaying here, and you can even read the values below, which is good for debugging. We can, with this X and Y, we can see the exact pixel values going from 0 to 13 here, across here, and top to bottom, 0 to 159. We can now select this image sequence here. So this is the one. This is the one we just imported, and we could skip this part, but if we use this as an image texture, we can also get image info. Just found this out, and we can actually just hook up the width and height of the image to automatically adjust to the dimensions of this image. So we get a vertex for each pixel, and already if we do an instance on points and just grab a cube, make it tiny, and instance this right here. Okay, so we can see we have lots of points, but these do not have the positions that we want them to have. So what we can do now is we can simply hook up a set position, and using, we can, let's leave it hooked up. You could just set the image in the image texture node, but still we can use the UV map from this grid, and then if we split the color on this it's separate color. If we separate the color on this image texture, we can then feed this into combine XYZ. And this is not hooked up correctly, but still I want to hook this up right away. So we can see we have lots of points already. So this is almost the, not really, this is almost the grid we want to have. So one thing we'll have to do is, because in Touchdesigner I hooked up green as up, and because the axes are differently, in Blender it's Y up, in Touchdesigner it's Y up, and in Blender it's Z up, so we'll have to hook it up this way, but it doesn't look right yet. So this is simply a problem because, or this is due to the UVs from this grid going from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1 along the UV axes, but our values are not perfectly at 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. So we can see this really nicely in Touchdesigner if we make it show this info. So we can disable this by, or show it again by toggling this display pixel values, and we can see U and V right here. So if I go on the bottom pixel, you'll see it's 0.038 and 0.03. If I go across, the U changes to a value, well, it goes from a value a bit above 1 to a value a bit below 1. So you could copy these values and get by pretty well, but the values that are shown here are rounded. Again, you can see the other ones right here. So we'll have to calculate these on our own. And good thing we have the width and height right here, because this can let us automatically calculate this. So if we take the width, which is 13, we take the height, which is 160. So what's the calculation for this? The thing is, we want our UV map to go in a different range. So I can already mess with these values. So I could put this one up a bit, put this one down a bit, this one down, this one up. So we'll see that it gets a bit more right. But what we'll want to do is, again, we can grab two combine XYZs, so we can hook them up here. Just this is not correct. We have to mess with these values. Okay. Guess this is der neueste Stand der Forschung. This is I've just worked this part out today, for example. So what we can do, I guess I'll put this to 1 so we have our messed up grid back with us. So I guess I can already show that we can hook up our scene time here, and we'll already see it react. So we can already see it, we can't yet see it react because our actual effect is only obtained by using the alpha channel in Touchdesigner to omit the points that are not active, to only keep the ones that are active using the alpha channel. So we'll have to copy this behavior in here. So let's get back to the UV mapping calculations right here. So what we can do is we can grab 2 math nodes, and we have to set these both to divide. This is just UV math. I had to lean back for a minute to figure this one out, but we just have to divide 1 by these values, and then once take this direct value, and the other time we need to, I'll just use this to quickly grab a subtract node, and then we need to subtract this value from 1 minus this value we just got. So we can actually read these values. So this is almost right. We need to divide 0.5 by these values. So this already looks like the value we had in Touchdesigner. Same as here. I guess it doesn't want to calculate this one, but that's fine. Don't have to figure out why that is now. So we'll also hook this one up. So if we now hook this one up here, and this one here, we'll see we have our perfect grid. So no shifts. I tried this copying the values from Touchdesigner, but then at the edges it wasn't right because the values are rounded. But if we now look at it from the other direction, we see perfect grid, everything copied over nicely. So it looks exactly like these views from the side that I set up here. Okay, so now let's get to using the alpha channel to delete the points that we don't need. So what do we have to do? We have to delete geometry. I'll hook this up in a second because it will just delete everything immediately, but we want to delete all points where the alpha value is 0. So if we hook this up, ooh, that's our effect. Very nice. I just hit play and we can already see it's reacting. So the last thing we have to do is drag in our stack of money, hook it up to instance, hook it up to instance, and we have our stacks that are reacting. I guess we need to turn these because I did not completely correctly transfer everything, of course, along the z-axis. So it's getting a bit slow, but believe me, it's way slower if you try to start doing this at some other point of this process that I've kept in Touchdesigner. So you can actually go in and capture these tops at different points of your network as EXR frames and transfer these to Blender, use simulation zones to make something like this happen. But believe me, it's just a bit better like this. So let's just move this up a bit. I guess this way I can't get them completely framed because I have the camera mapped to the circle, but this way is fine. So this should even render out pretty quickly. So right now I just have the GeoNode setup that we just created set to render, and I've tried using simulation zones and all that to get something like this to work in Blender, but it's easiest to just transfer these point clouds to EXRs, hook this thing up, and I guess what's the last thing you want to do? I guess the last thing you want to do is, while exporting your EXR frames, also exporting the audio. Then you can drop the audio using the timeline thing. That's something I could show, but is quite easy to look up. And as well, if you have a finished audio snippet, for example, a song of 3 minutes, you can just make it locked to the timeline. If you then have another audio file in, so if you grab an info on an audio file in, you can check what the file length in frames is of your audio. So I guess this was something else, something a bit shorter. This was just some mashup I made, so at 60 frames, this would be 12,100 frames. You could set your timeline. I guess it's still set up like this. You can just let it run through, set your maximum, either set it to play once or set your movie file out to maximum length of exactly this. You could probably also just define this by grabbing the value right here. I don't dare to say basic stuff, but still, our video should be rendered right here. So date modified today, 1946. So this is our new animation. So this is what we just created. So basically, as soon as you have your point clouds set up in Touchdesigner, your tops driving point clouds, and you have some object you want to instance, I guess I showed the biggest part of this. Of course, what else do I have? I have this camera following a Bezier circle, but other than that, this is how you do it. So the main part of this workflow is just exporting as EXR frames, and then how do you set that up to get points according to the values stored in these EXR frames. Sometimes you'll have to mess with these numbers, so everything is definitely aligned, so you start playing with the right frame, especially if you drag audio in. You'll have to look out for that. I guess I can just quickly change this one to is it the video sequencer? So I guess here you can add sound, just something, the thing you use in Touchdesigner. So I guess you could just you can just add the audio you used in Touchdesigner into here, or if it should just be some snippet for debugging, you can just link an audio file out to the same range that you're recording into frames. That's a bit of another topic. So the workflow is long, as already covered. Why would you want to do this? I guess Blender has lots of functions, lots of possibilities that would make you want to render something like this in Touchdesigner, or also make changes afterwards. Maybe you want to use grease pencil or something like that. I guess that's some reason to go into here. Yeah, guess that's it. I hope at some point this maybe helps someone make some small dream or some dreamt up animation come true. Of course, possibilities are endless, especially if workflows like this are unlocked. So in lots of cases, I can imagine it's way easier generating some data in Touchdesigner and then transferring it to Blender. You can use simulation zones, but I think Touchdesigner is way more intuitive in the way that data flows strictly along the paths that you set, but in Blender it's sometimes implicit, where you drag in some position or index node, and then just sometimes it doesn't work. So I tried doing the same setup. So I just for debugging purposes, I made this. To start off, I wanted to realize this idea, make this idea come true in Blender. But the thing is, it was just a bit slower. I knew how to make the data in Touchdesigner to make this thing move. I wanted to separate the two processes, create the data in Touchdesigner, and render it in Blender. This is how you can do it.